For those of you who are just joining in, we're just doing a little reminiscing here as we get ready to start our program for the day. So welcome. Please turn on your cameras if you're willing to be seen, which I hope most of you are. Nobody in witness protection here, as far as we know. I'm Judy Jetson. I'm going to be your moderator today of the panel, which is going to be on all things fair trade. Everything you wanted to know, and maybe a little bit more that you didn't think you needed to know. But we have a great group of experts here, experienced people to talk to you. And then, of course, Kelsey's on board as always, our executive director. She's going to be telling you just a little bit about Warp, and Hetty is going to be tech support today. Hi, Hetty. So usually once we start the panel, we ask everyone to mute themselves, but we have three panelists today, and I'll introduce each one of them to you in a few minutes. And we take our questions primarily in the chat. So if a question comes to you as you're listening, just type it in there. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled to see what's what, and anyone who has a burning question that actually clarifies or relates to what the speaker's doing, I'll go ahead and interrupt them and ask your question. But for the most part, we'd like to save those till the end, where we can have discussion, and you'll have had a chance to hear what everyone has to say. So it looks like we are ready for Kelsey to tell us a little bit, maybe what's coming up with Warp. Anything you want to share? We've got a location for our annual meeting next year. I know that. That's exciting. That's in the Southeast again.
Yes, we next year we will have our annual meeting in May in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, at the University of Alabama. And I'm actually going to briefly screen share Warp's website because I want to show where we have a few resources. I see a lot of familiar faces today and also a lot of new people. So I first want to say welcome to all of you. As Judy said, I'm Kelsey Wiskirk, I'm Warp's Executive Director, and just delighted to have you here. So this is Warp's website, weavearealpiece.org. We can also put that in the chat so you have the direct link. And I wanted to share that on Warp's homepage, you will always find our kind of highlights and upcoming events right here on the homepage. So you'll see this month's events later this month. Let's see, actually in October, we have Linda Temple for our members fireside chat. Here's the save the date for the 2025 annual meeting with information about that if you're interested in joining us in person in 2025. And I want to share that all of our events are recorded. And here on this main events tab, you'll be able to access all of our previous panel discussions, which are free and open to all at this link. So you'll click there and you can see the whole catalog of them, read more, and watch the videos. I also want to share that we have quite a few great resources under our community tab. The Artisan Direct Connect is a listing of Warp member businesses. So if you're interested in sourcing textiles from great international groups that support artisans around the world, this is a wonderful place to find listings for retail, for wholesale, and also for services, consulting services, and textile tours. So we have quite a few Warp members who lead tours to different countries to visit textile communities. We also have a member publications list, information about Warp's Community Leadership Award, grants and scholarships, if you're interested in volunteering with Warp. So there's lots of great information there. And of course, if you're not a member, we invite you to visit the website and join Warp. One other announcement that our volunteer coordinator asked me to share is that we are currently looking for new members to join our panel discussions committee that puts together our monthly program. So if you have, if you're interested in helping us plan, if you have ideas for programs that might be related to Warp's mission, I'll put her email address in the chat and you can contact Debbie Durham, our volunteer coordinator, directly. So I think that's all that I need to say, and I'll turn it back over to you, Judy.
All right. Thanks, Kelsey. Let's dive right into it. Our first presenter this afternoon is going to be Lindsay Woodruff, and she's Warp's administrative assistant. She told us a little bit ago that she's been watching Warp for quite a while, but just joined this year. I was going to say stalking Lindsay, but I didn't really want to put that on you, so.
That would be accurate.
Okay. Um, so she's also a board member for the Fair Trade Federation and founder of Maraluna, which is a fair trade neighborhood shop in Oakwood, Ohio, which is in the Dayton area. So welcome, Lindsay, and please tell us what you have to say about fair trade.
All right. Thanks, Judy. Yeah, so as I was, I think Judy put it best that I've been aware and following Warp for a long time and just didn't see how I quite fit in. But thankfully, I discovered Warp through my work at the Fair Trade Federation. So I was already admiring your beautiful work. So let me share my screen here because I have put together some slides for you. Let me move all your floating heads so I see what I'm doing. Okay, so I am here in a few different capacities today, both as the founder and owner of Maraluna, my own little fair trade shop, and then also in my capacity as the vice chair of the Fair Trade Federation board. I'm in my 6th and final year on the board with the FTF. Unfortunately, I'm terming off this spring, but it's been a long and lovely relationship. So I'm going to tell you about fair trade in general as the Fair Trade Federation defines it, and then also a little bit about my own journey in fair trade. So first of all, one thing that I want to make sure everyone understands is that fair trade as a movement does not have any one definitive definition. So it's not trademarked, it's not copyrighted. Nobody owns the term fair trade. And as a result, there's a lot of different ways it's practiced. There's lots of different ways it's defined. It is a movement that is driven by the fair trade organizers and producers in the countries where fair trade is practiced. So that's one of the things that makes it really, really beautiful is it is such a grassroots movement. And so it is defined by the people who practice it, but it can also lead to a lot of confusion in the marketplace, which is one of the things that the Fair Trade Federation is sort of working to help create more recognition and understanding of fair trade. So in 2018, there was an event that happened called the International Fair Trade Charter, where over 250 different organizations from around the world that work in the fair trade movement all came together to kind of seek a common definition and understanding of fair trade. So there were over 250 signers, including myself as Maraluna. And so we there is a general agreed upon definition that just may have a few different nuances in the cultural context of where those people those organizations are working. So this is the Fair Trade Federation's definition. And for those of you who aren't looking at your screen or can't see it clearly, I'll read it to you real quick. It says fair trade is an approach to business and to development based on dialogue, transparency, and respect that seeks to create greater equity in the international trading system. Fair trade businesses partner with farmers and craftspeople in developing countries who are socially and economically marginalized to find markets and customers for their goods. So that is the FTF's definition. Again, you'll see a few different nuances based on who is defining it at that time. What is defined as marginalized might be different in different contexts. What is defined as a developing country might be different depending on context, but this is a general agreed upon definition by those practicing fair trade. So who is the Fair Trade Federation? Why do I keep yapping about them? So the Fair Trade Federation is a trade association of fair trade enterprises fully committed to equitable and sustainable trading partnerships. We strengthen and support our members in order to grow the global movement of trade that values the health of the planet and the labor, dignity, and equality of all people. We are a registered 501c6 trade association in the United States, and our members are made up of organizations that do have a registered business in the United States and Canada, but we're also members of the World Fair Trade Organization, which is like a global version of the FTF, and we all work together in partnership to help promote fair trade. So again, everyone has will define these principles differently, but generally these are the 9 principles that we all recognize as being the backbone of the fair trade movement. If a few different places will have 10 principles, some will have 8, but it's kind of like how different religious traditions will define the 10 commandments differently. They're all the same principles. So a few of the things that the fair trade movement can all agree upon as central to the identity of our movement are cultivating new market opportunities for producers, small-scale farmers, and craftspeople all around the world, developing transparent and accountable relationships. These are long-time relationships that are built on trust. That is central to fair trade as it's practiced. Building capacity, helping build the capacity to scale and grow and hire more craftspeople, to bring in more farmers to your cooperative, just somehow increasing the business capacity so you can grow sustainably. Promoting fair trade, again, there's a lot of confusion especially amongst consumers about what fair trade is and how it's practiced. So promoting that, helping to grow understanding and recognition. Paying promptly and fairly, again, central to fair trade business practices. A lot of traditional trade partnerships, pay is not made to the producer until either 30 days past delivery, 60 days past delivery. In the fair trade movement, we make sure that we pay when the producers need it, sometimes upfront so that they don't have to borrow money to pay for materials, and again, fairly. Supporting safe and empowering working conditions, making sure that the workplace is safe and healthy and everybody has their personal protective gear and is working ergonomically to protect their body. Ensuring the rights of children, so no child labor, no forced labor amongst kids. Kids have the right and the freedom to go to school, to get their education. Cultivating environmental stewardship, practicing a circular economy, circular supply chain to help not just protect the earth, but more regenerative practices to help rebuild the earth. And then, of course, respecting cultural, racial, and ethnic identities in the communities we're working in. So this is when Kelsey's asked me to talk about fair trade, I said, how long do I have? Because this is where we can get really wonky. So what does fair trade certified mean? So I think this is one of the places where in the fair trade movement, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot and just create a lot of unnecessary confusion. But so I'm sure a lot of you recognize a lot of these logos across the screen. You'll see them on a lot of products, on a lot of packaging. But this is one of the central kind of tenets of, nobody owns fair trade. Like all these organizations have their own way of defining whether or not something is a fair trade product. So generally, fair trade certified, the word certification applies to a product, a finished product, usually in the packaged goods market. So like food products like bananas, coffee, chocolate. We're starting to see a lot more fair trade certified manufacturing practices in clothing, like Patagonia and Athleta and a few other big brands. You'll see fair trade certified products. Certification applies to a specific product. So a company like Starbucks might produce 30 different types of coffee, and maybe only 4 of those coffees are fair trade, and the rest are just generic traditional coffee. So Starbucks themselves are not a fair trade organization, but they can produce a certified fair trade product. You'll see this a lot in private labeling with different grocery store chains. You'll see it in other big multinational corporations like Nestle might have like a fair trade line of chocolate. But it's just the one product. What is generally practiced in the more handcrafted, handmade world of fair trade, like baskets, jewelry, ceramics. You'll see it a lot with different like toys and other just handmade products, is what we call being a verified fair trade organization. So verification and certification are different ways of defining fair trade, but a verified fair trade organization looks at the whole company from top to bottom, from sourcing of the raw product to the very, very end product, like the finished basket, the finished garment, the finished coffee mug, whatever you're buying. And if the whole supply chain and the whole company is practicing fair trade from start to finish, if they meet all 9 of those principles that we looked at, then they can be verified as a fair trade enterprise or a fair trade business organization. Some of the bodies that will do that are the World Fair Trade Organization, the Fair Trade Federation. There are a few others that will do that in local countries, like Fair Trade Nepal has their own certifying body that will look at organizations and verify them as a fair trade organization. So I know that's really confusing, and I tried not to go too deep, but generally the difference is certification is an individual product. Verification is the whole organization top to bottom, the whole business, the whole enterprise. Maraluna is a fair trade enterprise. We're a verified member. So we can go deeper into that if you want
Lindsay,
to.
Lindsay, let's hear about Maraluna.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Maraluna is my business. We started it in I tend to talk in the plural, but it's my business. I started it in 2015. Essentially, and if you saw my fireside chat, this is all repetitive, but so I was working in a job I wasn't happy in. I wasn't really feeling fulfilled, like I was doing what I was meant to do. And I kept coming back to how much I loved shopping for fair trade products, how much I loved meeting the communities that create fair trade goods in my career that I had prior to this. And I just kept talking about how I wanted to have a fair trade shop in my hometown. I wanted to introduce my community, my neighbors to fair trade goods. And essentially, there was an empty space. My friends and my family kept telling me, you have to do this. The timing's never going to be right. So I started Maraluna. At Maraluna, we work with, I think at my last count, it was about 100 different fair trade artisans in about 40 different countries around the world. We carry everything from jewelry to toys to home decor items, baskets, ceramics. We actually just last week had our annual Fair Trade rug event where we had over 600 rugs from Pakistan in the shop, and that's my cute little niece sitting on top of the pile there. So we carry a little bit of everything, but they're all fair trade, and it's really all just about highlighting the beauty and the variety and the diversity of the fair trade world and handmade products, and celebrating these traditions, this artistry, this creativity. And I just want to bring it to my own community. So I don't really, I'm not sure what else to share, just with that being too repetitive, but so yeah,
And Lindsay, do you travel to other countries to meet the artisans, or do you
when I
use this
can.
another way?
It's my time is limited with operating a store and having my own little kiddos and family to take care of. So we've gonna be 9 years old in October. And in that time I've been able to visit, I think, 4 of the communities that we work with. So again, not often. COVID put a big damper on that. But I think that's why I'm so reliant upon systems like the World Fair Trade Organization and the Fair Trade Federation to help doing that vetting and verifying for me, because not everybody has the opportunity to go visit a weaving cooperative in Rwanda firsthand. And so, to know that there are organizations and people that I trust that have gone and visited and made sure that they're practicing ethical, sustainable, fair trade is really, really important to me as a fair trade shop owner. And yeah, so that's I'm hoping to visit more in the future now that the pandemic is kind of in our rearview mirrors a little bit. And now that I've built the business up to the point that I am able to take more time off. So yeah, I'd love to go visit, go see my friends that I've made over the years.
Sure.
So,
And that kind of travel can be transformative.
oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing
Thank you.
everything that you have with us this afternoon. And we'll go on to hear from our other 2 panelists, and then y'all be thinking about any questions you might have for Lindsay, and just write them in the chat if you do. The next speaker is going to be Lauren. Do you say Basque or Basque? How do you pronounce your last name?
Basque.
Basque. She's executive director of Friends of Sharing the Dream in Guatemala,
Yep.
Which is a fair trade nonprofit.
Correct.
They promote sustainable fair trade and create opportunities for their Guatemalan partners. So take it away, Lauren.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. As Judy said, my name is Lauren, and I'm the executive director of Sharing the Dream in Guatemala. Just a little bit about kind of how I got involved in fair trade. When I was 17, I earned a scholarship to go live in Peru with a host family for a month. And it really was a life-changing opportunity for me. Coming from a small town in rural Minnesota, it was pretty homogenous, pretty middle class. And being able to travel to Peru, and particularly Lima, was very eye-opening. The disparity was huge, and that was really my first exposure to extreme poverty. So I came back, 17, I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I wanted to do something. And one of the things that I loved about fair trade is that it's really more of a hand up model. It's not a handout. It provides people with the opportunity to do for themselves. And that's something that I absolutely loved. So I trained as a CRS Fair Trade Ambassador in 2011, and then didn't really have a great opportunity to use it until I started in 2016 as Sharing the Dreams Director in Guatemala. So Sharing the Dream is a fair trade nonprofit. We're registered 501c3 here in the US, as well as an NGO in Guatemala. And we work with people in Guatemala to be able to provide a sustainable livelihood. That includes about 20 different artisan groups. We also provide support for elders and children in need, and we are a verified member of the Fair Trade Federation. So we work with artisans from all over Guatemala. Last count, I figured we had about 10 different departments or kind of counties in Guatemala where we have artisans and staff members. Our offices are located in the Lake Atitlan region of Sololá, so that tends to be where a lot of our artisan groups are from, but we also have artisans from the Petén, Chiquimula, Quetzaltenango, Guatemala City, so they really are from all over Guatemala. And then as part of our work with the artisans, we purchase their crafts at a fair price, as is the basis of fair trade. And then we sell them in a couple different outlets. We have a little boutique here in Vermilion, South Dakota. We are the only fair trade retailer in South Dakota. We sell online. We also have recently started doing some wholesaling. And then we do mobile marketplace sales. So pop-ups around the US, a lot of them are volunteer-led because that allows us to send more money back to Guatemala. And then the profits from the sale of our crafts, coupled with donations, go to support our projects and programs in Guatemala. So these are some of the programs. I'll talk a little bit more about the Artisan Development Program in detail, but we run a small scholarship program. So we have 26 students in 3 communities and 3 distinct regions of Guatemala. They get the financial resources to be able to go to school, but also the academic resources that they need in order to succeed in school. And we also run an elder center for the poorest of the poor. So a feeding program for 65 Maya elders. They have medical care, and it's a place that they can feel like a human being again. So as a fair trade organization, we make sure that those 9 principles that Lindsay was talking about apply to all of our programs and projects in Guatemala, not just our artisan development program. But our artisan development program really is our flagship program. As I said, we work closely with about 20 different artisan groups from around Guatemala. And at any given time, that number varies. Sometimes artisan groups graduate out of the program and no longer need us, which is an ideal opportunity because then that allows us to be able to support new artisan groups. But one of the things that we do is really work on skill building with them. So we do that in a couple different ways. One of them is formal workshops. So our artisan development staff will go out to the field and put on a workshop for the artisan groups. The first workshop that we do when we take on any new artisan group is what is fair trade and how to calculate a fair price for your work. As Lindsay was talking about that, I think paying fairly and promptly is the one thing that if you ask people who aren't very familiar with fair trade what they know about fair trade, that really is kind of the principle that most people know about. So really making sure that the artisans are able to calculate a fair price for their work and that they understand what fair trade is and what those values are, how we embody those values, excuse me. Quality control, design, color combination. Kind of the last 2 workshops that we do with them are marketing and client development. So what do you need to be able to market yourself and your artisan group and your products, and how to actually go out and create those new opportunities and have larger access to markets for yourself. The other way that we do a lot of work with our artisans is through field work. So our staff will once again go out to the field and work with artisans in a less formal setting than a workshop would be, but this really allows us to be able to work with them and build new artistic skills as well. As part of our work with the artisans, that paying fairly and paying promptly is really important. So we have kind of a down payment system. So when we place an order with the artisans, we provide 50% of the total order cost up front. That way they're able to purchase materials and live while they complete the order, because that's really important. They don't need to go out and borrow from a loan shark. They know that they have a way to live. Then they're complete. They turn those in, they go through a quality control check, and then the artisans are paid the remainder before they even leave our office. We do lots of work with our artisans to help them to really be the designers instead of us giving them the designs. Because when you give somebody a design, while they might have work, that keeps them as a producer. But if you give them the skills to be able to be the designers, then they become the artists themselves. And that's really important to us. And then one of the ways that we promote and respect cultural and identity is through promoting the use of those traditional artisan techniques. So the artisans in the pictures are using the backstrap loom. It's a traditional Guatemalan loom, and it predates the Spaniards' arrival in Guatemala. And it's typically passed down through the generations from mother to daughter. So Very little technology, but an incredible process to watch. So we figure this year so far, we've placed product orders with about 17 artisan groups for a total of about 300 artisans amongst those groups for a total impact of about 1,800 indirect beneficiaries. We've also been able to hire an artistic director, which is a lifelong or a long-term dream of ours anyway. And this individual will be able to provide new workshops to artisans and really be able to beef up the work that we do with them and hopefully provide even more opportunities for the artisans. So we're really excited about that. So just briefly, a few ways that you can get involved should you be so inclined. You can shop. Our website is an online store is on the next slide. You can host a trunk sale for us. We make it really pretty easy. We send you a box of products. You invite your friends over for a glass of wine and a cup of coffee, however you're inclined. Sell the products and return everything back to us when you're done. As I said, you can make a donation. We are a registered 501c3 nonprofit, so your donations are tax deductible, and we cover our administrative costs through other ways. So we don't take any administrative fee out. You can purchase wholesale. We have some trips to Guatemala, but most importantly, help us to spread the word. And this is how you can get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Very, very interesting. I didn't realize you also gave tours.
Yes,
Very
we
cool.
do.
Okay, and our third speaker this afternoon is Linda Temple, who's one of Warp's co-founders and was our newsletter editor for 25 creative years. She will discuss the Pambi. Is that how you say it, Linda? Pambe, Ghana's global market. It's a seasonal fair trade shop with pop-ups throughout the year, and all the proceeds support education for children in northern Ghana. Linda's been involved with lots of different groups, though, over the years. This is just her current passion. So Linda, tell us about fair trade from your perspective.
Okay. Although Ghana's global market is what I am doing now, I started doing fair trade almost 40 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, when Sister Leona Lupi came to my weaving guild to tell us about the work she was doing in Guatemala at an orphanage, and to tell us that the mothers of the children there, almost all of them widows, were weavers and had formed a group and wanted to sell their textiles and didn't have any markets. So she said if anybody in the guild was interested in helping, to get in touch with her. So a couple of us did. We took up a collection from the Weaving Guild and got $200 whole, and which we spent immediately, and it went a lot further than it does today, but to get textiles from this group in Santa Apollonia. The first beginnings of that, they were able to ship stuff to us, but it became impossible to do that. This is pre-Fair Trade Federation, pre any kind of group efforts to do this, to bring in artisan products. So my friend and I ended up going down there several times and hauling back duffel bags full of textiles and convincing the customs people that they were all gifts for our friends and family. And then we would have just home sales and pop-ups and sell what we had, buy more. And it just continued for a long time, 10 years. And we decided then that everybody we knew had as much Guatemalan textiles as they could buy or give away. So we decided we were going to venture out into the larger world of fair trade. And by the way, when we started, it wasn't called fair trade, it was called alternative trade. So our first work was in alternative trade. In the mid-90s, we actually formed an official organization, Market Day. We were incorporated in the state of Oklahoma, and we did not have a 501c3 status, though. That didn't come till quite a bit later. And then we, okay, also in the 90s, I worked at World Neighbors, an international development organization here in Oklahoma City. They had a gift shop that had not been active for many years. So we convinced them that we could do the market for them, their gift shop, which we did. And then they decided to have some big fundraisers with advertising, and they instructed me to buy $100,000 worth of fair trade products. And I did. And I was a volunteer. I had many friends who joined as volunteers, and we got all these products inventoried and priced and displayed for this huge event, which sold out in a day and a half. And it was quite successful. So we did that for 2 more years, the World Fest market. And then World Neighbors decided that they wanted to do it themselves instead of having volunteers do it. So we kind of tried to figure out what we wanted to do next. I say we, me and my friends who were all quite involved in fair trade by this time. You can show the next slide, Kelsey. Thank you. Good friend of ours, Alice D. Gubbles, was from Ghana, from northern Ghana, and she lived here in Oklahoma City because her husband had gotten a job here. She could not work for the same company because they had a nepotism policy. So she went back to school, got a master's degree in childhood education, and then a certificate in Montessori teaching. And she kept talking about going back to Ghana. She wanted to go back to Ghana and start a school. And at one gathering we had, somebody said to her, Alice, you either need to do it or you need to quit talking about it. So she did it. And next slide, Kelsey. She went back to this very rural area, no schools anywhere around, and talked to the parents, talked to the government, talked to the Education Association, made all the trips to all the chiefs and all the villages around, got all the support to start this school. And they literally built the school. You can see them here making the blocks from the mud, and the girls on the left are making roof tiles, and the boys are watching them put the roof on. And next slide, Kelsey. Now this is what the campus looks like. I wish I had a picture of the first class was held under a banyan tree. And I looked for that, but not carefully enough, I guess. But this is what it's grown into. This does not show the teachers' quarters because many of the teachers come in just for the week to teach and then go back to their homes for weekends. And they've now built biogas toilets, which are not showing here. And so it's grown significantly since it was started in 2007. Next slide.
Linda, what is a biogas toilet?
Well, I can't describe it exactly, but it's a system that produces gas from the toilets. Kind
of like a landfill off gases.
Yeah, probably.
I got you.
Yeah.
And so they harness that gas for fuel.
Cooking. cooking primarily. Yeah, and you'll see a picture later of the cooking meals.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is the very first class. You can see it's a kind of a raggedy looking bunch of kids in 2007. They started out with 40 students in preschool. This is just preschool, and every year added a class, a grade, up to 6th grade and or 8th grade. I'm sorry, they go up to 8th grade, but they added a class a year. So next slide. Now there's 317 students, and it's a real difficult to make the decisions about how many students are allowed, because they only have the capacity. In fact, I think this is a bit beyond capacity, but it's every single parent wants their child to go to this school. But the theory is that the kids will bring their learning home with them. And we've stocked a full library, and they can check out the books and they can take them home. So they are teaching their siblings how to read, and in some cases their parents. But it's changed these communities, these rural communities, in many, many, many ways. So next slide. The parents have been involved from the very beginning. This is a parent-teacher association meeting, and it is out in the courtyard, and they're quite involved. At the very beginning of the school year, they have a parents' day, and the parents are all invited to come in and look at all the materials. It's all Montessori, all the Montessori materials, how they work, what they do, and how to support their children. The parents provide all the lunches. You can go to the next slide, Kelsey. Lunches for all of these children and the teachers every day. And for many of the students, this is their primary, if not only, meal during the day. But the parents provide the rice, the local produce, and Pambagana provides, if they have any meat, which is very rare, or fish, Pambagana provides that. But this was before the biogas toilets, and the women would literally go gather the wood, build the fires, cook the food for now 317 students. And the school not only provides lunches, but they provide health services. Next slide, Kelsey. Hepatitis B is a big problem in Ghana. And so they have had education classes, screening, vaccination, and treatment programs for hepatitis B as well. And they've been able to get the cost of the doses down to $3.65. That still adds up to a lot when you're vaccinating 300 kids, but it's a real bargain, really. So it's a huge investment in northern Ghana and in the lives of all the people there. So at the very beginning, of course, they were raising a lot of money to get this started. And we didn't have a lot of money. So as a fair trade mercenary, I always say I'm a fair trade mercenary, that I and some of my friends decided that we would start a fair trade market in Oklahoma City. You can go to the next slide, Kelsey. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the 8th grade class, the first class that graduated And they all completed high school, and most have gone on to university or training schools, which is unbelievable for that area. Alice came from that area. She was the only person that went to high school or college from her village. And so education, getting a good education is not easy in that part of the world. Okay, next slide. Okay, so as I said, I did have experience with fair trade. And so we decided to start a market. And it is 501c3. It's under the auspices of the Pambegana organization here in town, which is the board of directors for the school in Ghana. And we do have a brick and mortar store in November and December. And the rest of the time we have pop-ups here and there and go wherever we're invited. Unfortunately, many of us are getting old, and hauling all that stuff around is no fun anymore. So we don't do as much of that as we used to. 10 years ago, we were able to hire a store manager who is absolutely wonderful, Sarah Braden, who's also a WARP member. And she does all the day-to-day, she's in charge of all the day-to-day stuff at the market. Next slide. Okay, next slide, Kelsey. We never know where we're going to be from one year to the next because we're beggars, and we want people to donate space to us. And unbelievably, it has happened. We had to pay a little bit one year and quite a bit one year, but otherwise we've gotten the spaces for free. Sometimes we pay for electricity or Wi-Fi. This year, the location we have, we're going to pay for electricity and Wi-Fi, but the space is free. And we have currently 45 active volunteers that work in the market. And so we have orientations every year. Everybody's encouraged to bring their friends, and we'll do an orientation anytime that somebody wants to join in. And it's been a pretty successful market for all these years. So next slide, Kelsey. Here's just some pictures of the market and some contact information. So that concludes my slideshow, my presentation. If any of you have questions, I'd love to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We've got a couple of questions that have been sent in, and I have a couple just to fill in the blanks. But let me ask each of the panelists to kind of speak to this first one. Sonia wants a real example of how fair trade actually is implemented. And the question she asks is, do artisans earn the smallest profit margin of everyone involved in this process? And more specifically, what percentage of a selling price would the artisan receive typically? And you can talk about any examples that you'd like. And maybe I'll ask, Lindsay, why don't you go first?
So it's going to vary depending on the business model. Like some artisans produce in their own home, sell direct to the wholesaler, who sells direct to the retailer, who sells to the consumer. Some artisans are members of a cooperative, and some are employees of a family structured business. So but generally speaking, it's usually between 30 and 40% of the final retail price. It, it has crept down in the last few years since shipping costs have gone up so much, and a lot of us are trying to protect the end consumer from having to pay a huge increase to cover the increased shipping costs. But usually it's between 30 and 40% of the final cost that the consumer pays.
Okay, thanks.
Sometimes it's closer to 50.
Lauren, how about with sharing the dream?
So it's about the same. You know, each artisan group sets their own price. We do lots of work with them to make sure that the price that they're setting is fair to them, that their costs are covered, that it's a wage that they can live on, that they've calculated appropriately the time and the materials that have gone into it. You know, and from there we, as an organization, have shipping costs that we need to add on to, and then we have a markup as well. But then because we're a nonprofit, anything above and beyond our costs being covered in that final number goes back to our projects and programs in Guatemala.
So yeah, so you're actually using that retail sale to fund health programs, for instance. Is that right?
Correct. Yep, that's one of the ways that we fund our programs in Guatemala.
Okay. Linda, how about you? It sounds like you probably have the least overhead of all the groups.
We do probably have the least overhead, but we buy only from fair trade organizations, certified fair trade or verified fair trade organizations. And based on their prices is what we sell for. And when people ask us how much the artisan is getting, our response, which I thought came from the Fair Trade Federation, is that they're paid a fair wage based on the local economy. And so I'd never heard the percentages before, but that's how we base our products prices.
Okay.
Because we don't work directly with the artisans, usually.
Got it. So would you buy things, say, from Lauren's organization?
Sure, if they have a wholesale program, we would. We buy from about 25 different vendors. And right now we're buying a lot because we're getting ready for our holiday market. So
are you still working with that same $100,000, or do you have more?
$100,000. What did I say?
You told us somebody gave you $100,000 for you to spend. This was back earlier.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's when you were talking about World Market, when you were looking for World Neighbors.
Oh, yes. Okay. That was for World Neighbors. Thank you, Deborah. I don't remember what I've said. The $100,000 was what we spent to buy fair trade products from verified fair trade vendors.
Right. So let's say someone who's listening today thinks they'd like to do a holiday market, although maybe they'll think about doing it for next year rather than this year because the time's coming up soon. How much do you think you have to invest in order to have a good market for a pop-up like this, Linda?
We probably we started with $200, and it got to be more and more, every year. And now we have a bank account that has money in it. The market money is kind of held separate from the Pombegana 501c3 money, and and that money is spent on special things, like they needed a motorcycle. We bought the motorcycle. They needed teachers' wages to hire more teachers. We paid the salaries for those teachers there for specific things.
Yeah.
But we probably started with maybe not that much, 10,000 or something. Uh-huh. But you could start even with less than that. If you figure it right, you can oftentimes get a 30-day payment plan from some of the vendors. So if you have your sale right away, you can sell everything before the bills due. And we used to do that too.
Yeah, working on the float, they call that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Could I
Um,
jump in here as well on this point?
Yes.
Excuse me?
Could I jump in here?
Sure.
I'm Elisa Wifter. I'm the U.S. Director for Upaving Crafts, another WARP member, and also a member of the Fair Trade Federation. And we have like consignment program for holiday sales where you can ship a bunch of items to you and do a smaller sale and then ship it back to us. And there are a few other fair trade companies that also do that. So you could do sales without having an initial investment.
Oh, very good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Sharing
you.
the Dream does that as well. So thank you for pointing that out, Lindsay.
Warp members used to do that regularly. There were Warp members who would decide to post a sale any time of year. And at that time, we were buying all from Upavim, I think. I don't know if Sharing the Dream was even invented yet. But it was, okay, back in the day. Anyway, Mary Joan Ferrara Marsland, who is a WARP member, was head of sales in the US for Upavim. And we would buy from them a lot. And members would host sales for them, consignment sales. And I'm pretty sure Serve does that too, allows consignment sales.
And buying hens.
And buying hands. I'm sure there's a lot of them. So if you are thinking about doing something like that, just go to the Fair Trade Federation website, check with some of the vendors and ask them if they would do that for you.
That's great. Thank you. Let's see. We had a question from Deb Chandler, and she must have been reading my mind. I had the same question about those 600 rugs, Lindsay. Now, did you have to buy the 600 or were those on
No,
consignment?
so it's with an organization called Bunyad. They're a nonprofit that has been working, and they're based out of Pakistan, but they also have a warehouse in the United States in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area. And they will load all the rugs up on a truck, bring them to you. You put them out for about 5 days, sell what you can, and then they pack them up and go on to the next store. So they were headed for 10,000 Villages in Illinois after visiting me. But I sold, I think I sold about 12 of them. So I mean, it's everything from little 2-foot runners to big 10 by 14 rugs. So like not all 600 of them were huge.
And
but
were these mostly to your neighbors, people that lived in Oakwood?
yeah, I had a couple of folks drive up from Cincinnati and but all people from Southwest Ohio. So
Oh, very good.
yeah, it's always fun. It's so much fun.
Okay. We also had a comment from Hetty about this, the earlier topic about the financing of it. And do you want to say something, Hetty, about that?
Well, yeah, we use a fair trade model, and we buy up front. We buy everything directly from the artisans at the price that they set. And then we use we mark them up when we sell them, but any proceeds that we make beyond our costs go right back to either buying more inventory or community projects. There, we've sent several of our artisans to various classes and conferences, and also supported graduate students, and just had put money into the community there, which we work in the highlands of Peru.
Okay, I want to ask sort of what I guess I feel is a closing question, because I see it's 3 o'clock. But I know that I've sort of followed on and off the fair trade movement since I went into my first 10,000 Villages store many moons ago. That was probably in Boston when I was in college. and have great belief in the whole issue of artisans in every country being paid a fair wage and being able to make a living from their craft. How much impact do you think has been made by the fair trade movement? You know, is this still a bit as big a problem as it was, say, 20 years ago? Are we chipping away at it? And I'll ask the speakers if they have something to say, but then kind of like to throw it open to the larger audience of people gathered here today, and because there's a lot of people with experience in this movement. Does any one of our speakers want to tackle that one? How big a problem is this still, that artisans don't get paid a fair pay for their work?
I'll take a stab at that. You know, I think we've made leaps and bounds with the fair trade movement over the last couple of decades, but that being said, I think there's still a long ways to go. You know, I've seen the impact that the artisans that we work with have had thanks to fair trade over the years. I mean, my 11 o'clock this morning was a group of college students at the University of South Dakota talking about fair trade. And one of the examples I shared with them was a family that's their group, you know, they've been involved with one of the weaving groups over the years. And just seeing that generational change has been pretty impactful. And a pretty concrete example for me, but I still think there's a long ways to go. Absolutely.
Anybody
So
else? Sure.
I know that lots of different groups and lots of different studies have been done about the impact of fair trade, the fair trade movement as a whole. But I think what it comes down to is the individual lives that have been impacted. I actually just had the privilege of talking to a friend that I made when I was visiting one of the groups I work with in Ghana a few years ago. She used to be a seamstress for the fair trade organization that I work with, and she was able to make enough money as a seamstress to quit that job and chase her own dream of opening her own restaurant. And just this week I spoke with her, and she had paid off the land that her restaurant was is built on. And to see her just accomplish one goal after another, and fulfilling her dreams of first being a seamstress and then being a restaurateur and now a landowner, I think really speaks to, you know, a lot of people like to analyze the movement and the policy and the numbers, but when it comes down to the individual lives that we've changed, or that we have been able to help people change for themselves, is really the most impact that I could ever hope to have.
Nice. Deborah, do you want to weigh in on this one? You need to unmute yourself.
I would say on that one that there, if you're looking at the people who are working in fair trade, the people that Sharing the Dream is working with, or that Mayan Hands is working with, or that Ubelbeam is working with, then the difference is extraordinary. And if you're not looking at them, if you turn around and you look at all the other people who are not working in fair trade, then the need is still extraordinary. And you can be sure that there is still scams in there. I mean, one of the things we used to hear all the time, for those of you who don't know me, I was the director of Mayan Hands in Guatemala for, I forget, 9 years, I guess. What they used to tell us a lot was that people would come to the village and they would say, we'll sell your stuff for you and we'll pay you after we sell it. And so they would give them the stuff, and then they never saw them again. And I suspect that that's still going on. Or they're just not getting paid fairly, or blah, 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 blah. So yes, I think the need is still extraordinary. And I think that if you're looking at individual people, the changes in how many girls are going to school and how many are actually making it to the university. And in the case of the Mayan Hand Scholarship Program, even some of the women themselves, they're not only are they putting their kids through school, but the women themselves are now going to school. So all of that is very exciting. They're eating better, they're healthier, blah, blah, blah. All of that, it's, you know, like what you saw in Linda's pictures from Palm Ghana. It's just incredible. And if I may have one more minute, when you were talking about what percentage do the artisans get? That's my number one favorite, most hysterical soapbox. And my basic message there is, it's the wrong question. The question is not what percentage of the sales price do the artisans get? The question is, are they being paid fairly? Because I can tell you that who's making money is shippers, is the shipping companies. And Mine Hands now also pays taxes on the things that they're sending, even though they're nonprofit. And the means of selling, the advertising, the overhead, the bigger you are, the greater your overhead is, even proportionally. And in the end, if you're looking at price of materials, the cost of materials, and the cost of this and boxes and whatever, then the artisan is actually getting a very small percentage. But the real question is, are they getting paid fairly in their community or in their lives or in their whatever? And it doesn't show up on the charts, but that business of, oh yeah, we give scholarships, and oh yeah, the elder program that Sharing the Dream has was one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen. Those people, a lot of them would not be eating if it weren't for the elder program. They are people who've gotten old and who don't have families to take care of them, or sometimes they do and their families don't have anything either. Those kind of benefits don't figure into the price either, but they figure into the program as a whole. So that's my soapbox, is ask the question the other direction. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. I'm really glad you did that, Deb, because that's a good wrap up of, I think, everything we've heard today, and we can ask the right question going forward. That's the same question that we deal with in Appalachia, the area that I work in with craft artists. That is, are they being paid fairly? Because people don't have a good system for helping them price their work.
And I just want to add something. This is Susan. We were just at a fundraiser where we live in Brooklyn. There's a local farm. Somebody found an old abandoned lot and asked permission to dig it up and put in a farm. And they give the community thousands of pounds of vegetables every spring and summer. So, they have all sorts, they invite kids to work there, kids earn money, but they're providing food, like Deborah was saying, is just so important to people. Access to food, to fruit and vegetables in the US is inaccessible in many communities. And it was so exciting to hear this program last night and what they're doing.
Very
Same
good.
issues everywhere.
Nice to hear from you, Susan. Nice to hear from everyone on our panel and to see everyone's smiling face on here today. You have any last words, Kelsey, before we sign off?
No, this has been great. Just a final thank you to Lindsay and Lauren and Linda. Thank you all for sharing your time and your experiences with us.
Did you want to mention next month first?
Yeah, right.
Sure. And next month, our panel is it's going to be on October 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll have the announcement email going out. But next month's panel is focused on Warp's Artisan Support Grants program. So the chair of our grants program, Diane Manning, will be sharing just about the development of our program. And we have 2 former grant recipients who will be joining and sharing about the grant funds that they received and what they did with those funds. So I think that should be really interesting and exciting. And I know a lot of people here on this call have supported Warp's grants program through donation. So that's next month. We'll send an announcement in the next week or 2.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Great to see you, and I hope I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.